My mother, Virginia Larson, served in World War II in the American Red Cross as a donut dolly for the Clubmobile service. Her group traveled behind the front lines of the American Third Army in France, Luxembourg, and Germany, handing out coffee, donuts, and a smiling reminder of home. Virginia Larson was born February 21st, 1918, in Chicago, Illinois, to Ralph and Louise Edmonds. She had one brother, Ray, who was 8 years her senior. Her entire youth was spent under the dire circumstances of the Depression era. Both her father and grandfather worked for the Chicago Fire Department. At one time, both men were not paid for 18 months, but went to work every day. The Edmonds lost their nice brick house, but managed to survive on my grandmother's salary as the manager of a small grocery store. After high school, my mom worked as a secretary for several different employers and enjoyed an uneventful pre-war social life. One fateful night in early 1941, however, at a YMCA dance, she met Joseph Larson, a student at the Illinois College of Chiropody and Foot Surgery. They were immediately attracted to each other's dazzling dancing abilities. From all reports, those kids could cut a rug. They were married October 29, 1943, at the Avon Park bombing range, where my father was stationed as a medical NCO with the U.S. Army Air Corps. Only 9 days later, my dad shipped off to England with the 9th Air Force Marauder Bombardment Group. Soon after, Mom joined the American Red Cross. This article appeared in the Chicago Tribune. Mrs. Virginia L. Larson, daughter of Ralph M. Edmonds, 6253 Holbrook Street, arrived in England recently to serve as an American Red Cross assistant. Prior to her appointment, Mrs. Larson was employed by the Utah Radio Production Company and American Relief for Norway Incorporated of Chicago. Mom's Group K was comprised of 9 Clubmobiles with 3 women per vehicle. They trained in England for several months, and then, from the map, you can see they followed the front lines through France into Luxembourg and then Germany. This was the original group sent overseas together. And this is the Clubmobile Group K, which traveled together throughout the remainder of the war. During training, the women learned to use the donut fryer and coffee machines, and also learned about handling livestock. All the women learned to drive the large Red Cross trucks. But the most important thing to Mom was creating lifelong friendships with her 2 co-workers, Tess and Jerry. They remained friends for life and endured many dangerous situations as donut dollies. Of the 7,000 total women enlisted with the Red Cross Clubmobile service, 52 women lost their lives during World War II. In August of 1944, just 9 weeks after D-Day, an armada of Allied ships sailed from England to the Normandy coast of France, including Group K. One of the first things they witnessed after landing was the surrender of many German soldiers. These Clubmobiles provided coffee, donuts, and engaging American smiles to the GIs just returning from the front lines. This was a chance for battle-fatigued soldiers to rest and restore themselves. My mom often told me of the GIs' deep appreciation for what they did. The soldiers showed their gratitude by giving the women patches from their military units, and they loved to write witty and appreciative statements in Mom's notebook, and also drew cartoons. In this one, the Clubmobile woman is saying, "Is there anything else you'd like?" In this detailed graphic, drawn in France in the autumn of 1944, First Sergeant Charles Jeglinski depicts the wartime rigors of the average American soldier. A German prisoner of war drew this very accurate pencil rendering of Mom. There is no name or story behind this image, but perhaps a donut and a cup of joe prompted his creative appreciation. And there were the letters home, censored for any revealing details. We crossed a certain river the other day. It was the Rhine. We were the first American girls to cross it since this war. And we pulled into this battlefield area exactly 20 minutes after the Nazis had fled. We arrived as tired as our boys, and we received an ovation. First, we were bawled out for being right up on the front lines, but before we left, they expressed wholeheartedly what our appearance meant to them. In another letter home, Mom wrote, "It was quite a noisy spot with our big guns continually firing over our heads. However, it all just went right over us. No return fire at all. Then a pilot of one of these little Piper Cubs asked me if I would like to go for a ride. These little planes are all over the countryside. They direct the artillery fire for our boys. They can land in just about any field and are as light as a feather. They aren't manned with any guns. The pilot just has a pistol. So off we went into the wild blue yonder, and what fun. We crossed over enemy lines, but they were too busy running to bother about us. Then coming back, we go way down low and skim a field and zoom back up over the treetops. In a photo journal, Mom wrote, "My first French dinner. The boys are from the motor pool where we park our clubmobiles. George, the big Frenchman sitting down, owns the garage. Yvette is his wife, and Jean-Jacques his little boy. Tess, one of our crew members, is sitting at the head of the table, and the other girl is Alma Ernst, our group supervisor from Quincy, Illinois." Entering Luxembourg, the Clubmobile group started noticing more evidence of the war and the destruction of the retreating Nazis while still having time for a few selfies. When they entered Germany, there was a strict order of absolutely no fraternizing with the German people. In Bitburg, the bomb damage from the Allied sortie was near total, and in Frankfurt, the devastation was on a similar scale. The winter of 1944-45 was one of the coldest on record, and Mom and her crew suffered from the cold. It was the only time she said she liked being by the big donut fryer because it kept her warm. During this winter, the Battle of the Bulge took place. It was a desperate last-ditch attempt by the Germans to mass their troops and try to repel the Allied forces who were pushing them back into Germany. This offensive near Belgium and Luxembourg was the most deadly battle of the European theater. 610,000 American troops were involved, 38,000 injured, and 19,000 were killed from December 19, 1944 to January 25, 1945. Mom's Group K was only a few miles from the fighting on several occasions and could hear and see the artillery shells and Luftwaffe planes dropping bombs and the Allied forces counterattacking. There were a few times Mom thought the fighting would sweep through her area, but fortunately it never did. Behind the front lines were squadrons of American C-47s delivering all the military supplies necessary to keep the Nazis on the run. Mom writes, "On another day we went into a clearing station. That is a hospital for men with slight shrapnel wounds or shell shock. Well, I saw my first shell shock case, and it's not too pleasant a sight. However, we breezed in with our wares and goofy chatter, and the atmosphere brightened considerably. This photo deserves special note, and I'm not sure where this image was shot. Group K Clubmobile Group was given a map to arrive in a certain German town right after the American infantry. Someone thought a shortcut would be a good idea, and the Clubmobile Tulsa soon found themselves watching two German soldiers walking through a field with their hands up. In a moment of quick military genius, the women made the men understand they must sit on the front fenders of the truck and gave them donuts to ensure their tranquility. In a short time they arrived at their destination and relieved themselves of their prisoners to a small but rather startled U.S. Army recon group. Following the collapse of the Nazi Third Reich, there were approximately 7 million refugees in Allied-controlled Europe. Group K witnessed thousands seeking a safe refuge. In one German town where the Germans had recently and quickly evacuated, Group K was given a Nazi VIP hotel to stay in. Obviously, these elites had a cushy stay at a lakeside palatial compound. Mom told me this story several times, but I wish I had more details. She and my father, Joe, only got together twice in a 2.5-year period when they were both serving overseas. One of those times was in London, and they had made reservations at a large military barracks hotel for married couples. As they were checking in, a very nice receptionist said that there was a better available room and that she was going to give it to my mom and dad. That night, a V-2 rocket from Germany destroyed the wing of the barracks that they were supposed to be in. Just a few days before victory in Europe, May 8, 1945, Mom was witness to one of the largest group surrenders of the war. On May 5th, the German 11th Panzer Division surrendered to the American 90th Infantry. As my mother mentions in a photo book, at first the Americans made the Germans lay down their arms, but there was just too many. This group surrendered for about 18 hours, and the Americans simply let them walk on by to an internment camp while keeping their arms. All total, there were nearly 10,000 German soldiers, 700 trucks and tanks, 500 artillery pieces, 300 sedans, a couple pictured here, and 155 motorcycles. Group K felt the eerie, threatening vision of thousands of Germans marching by fully armed. But there were no incidents. Everyone was bone tired of the war, so the Clubmobile girls and the boys from the triumphant 90th Infantry had a picnic. The war in Europe was over. After the end of the war, American armies stayed in Europe as the army of occupation, and people partied for weeks. When you think of all the years of absolute devastation the Nazis brought Europe and Russia, it must have felt like heaven on earth to know that this heinous monster was destroyed. For nearly a month, my mother and her Red Cross co-workers received permission to travel, and since there weren't many American girls in the European theater, they could go on just about any airplane going anywhere they wanted. There was massive shipments of food and emergency supplies being flown around the war-torn countries, and there was always room for a few cute American Red Cross girls. Mom visited Monte Carlo, Cannes, French Riviera, Venice, Austria, and a lot of German cities. She mentioned that the victory parties were deliriously celebratory and seemingly never-ending. I could tell she was rather shocked by some of the things she had seen. She returned to work near the end of June and stayed with her group in Regensburg, Germany, where the city's children were great fans of the free donuts. She was finally discharged to return home on October 12, 1945. She flew to Paris, caught a train to Le Havre, and then boarded a ship back home to America. She and her husband Joe settled in Billings, Montana, and raised 3 children. Joe passed away from cancer in October of 1971. I was a curious child, and even into adulthood, I queried my mom about her Clubmobile days, and of course now wished I'd asked more. But the information and images that remain bear testimony to her selfless service to her country as a donut dolly for the American Red Cross Clubmobile service. Sadly, Mom peaceably passed away 3 weeks after this photo was taken of her 3 grown children and one of her 5 grandchildren. She died on December 18, 2006.